We're going to go to the phones. Wendy, New York. Hi, Wendy. What's your question?
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
So I just wanted to know a little bit more about the Millennial Reign. Like, I understand the sequence of time, but, like, what's the purpose? Like, of how I understand it, all these judgments come to the world. Jesus' second coming comes. But then what's the point of keeping Satan bound for 1,000 years and then letting him out again? Like, I just don't understand.
What's the point? Yeah.
What's the point? Is it just like I know God and His great mercy, but I just don't really.
It doesn't seem. You're right. I mean, the Lord comes back, judges the nations in the tribulation, and sets up His kingdom. And then what in the world? Satan is bound and let out at the end. What's going on with that? I mean, why isn't like this it? Great question, and we're not told specifically why you go from the millennial kingdom, the final rebellion, and then the new heavens, new earth. But there is one little clue that I think makes sense. You know, one day is to the Lord, 1,000 years is as one day to the Lord. And we're pretty close to tracking human history back to Adam and Eve at about 6,000 years. I mean, we're coming to the end of 6,000. Now, which exact year that is, who could figure that out? And I'd be very suspicious if anybody says, this is when the millennial begins. But think about 6 days. The seventh day is rest. So the first 6 days is really work. And God is working among us. He's sent, Abraham, and he judged the early world, and he sent Abraham to guide. And, of course, then there's the rebellion, and human government is probably the biggest antagonist toward God in history. You have Babel, then you have, Assyrians, then the Egyptians, then you have Babylon, you have, Greece, you have, Persia, Medo-Persia, then Greece, then the Roman Empire. All of them are trying to essentially replace God. Every one of them had an issue with God's rule over the soul. So you have all this human history, and everything leads up to the coming of Jesus, and then now the last 2,000 years, there's been the work of God through the church. So God is working, and Jesus even says that. God is working till now, and I work. But there's going to come a time when everything happens now to finalize human history. And what better of a way to have the one who came, the Son of God, who became a man, who was crucified, and when he comes back, he's going to come back as king. So it's needful, as Jesus is on his Father's throne in heaven now, but he's got to finish this human history in that final seventh day, if you will, the millennial day, the 1,000 years, to come back and reign on his father David's throne, because he hasn't yet done that. And there's a lot of prophecies about Jesus coming to reign, or the Messiah coming to reign on Father David's throne. Many people spiritualize this and say, well, this is just heaven. But I believe that the Lord is going to be faithful. He does judge the nations, and then the nations that are the people that come through the millennium, they're still going to be in nations, and all the nations will go up to worship God. So it's actually a fulfillment of all of human history. But even what the great lesson is, because you wonder, well, if that's the fulfillment, why is Satan let loose? The reason for that is this new generation that grows up in a perfect environment with a perfect king, perfect everything. They still have their sin nature, those that populate the millennial. We won't. We will reign with Christ, but we won't be susceptible to sin anymore because we've already been forgiven of that, and that was done. We have our new bodies. We don't have that sin nature in us anymore. But those growing up in the millennium, they're going to have a perfect everything. So it's almost as if God is saying, no matter what condition you have, whether it's the Garden of Eden, you're going to sin, or whether it's a perfect millennial kingdom sin, it's like this is our prone tendency to sin, and only the Lord Jesus is glorified. So this is kind of how I see it as it ends. God is going to fulfill everything he began in the garden. Now it's going to be restored. But even then, sin in the heart will still be rebellious toward the end. And then the Lord will establish the new heavens and new earth, and no more of the former things will be remembered. Thank God.
So I clear it up for you?
Thank you for that. That was a very good explanation. And just a follow-up question that occurred to me is, when this millennial reign is established and Satan is bound, because we are like sinners at heart, sin will still also
Right.
be
Okay.
a factor.
Very good question. One answer. The Bible describes the Lord when he comes and reigns on the earth, he will rule with a rod of iron. In other words, I think Ecclesiastes gives us a good example of that. He says, because, I think it's Ecclesiastes 8:11, but because sin is not, or judgment against sin is not executed speedily, the hearts of the sons of men are fully inclined to do evil. So imagine a society in which the moment you did something wrong or thought something wrong, there was an immediate consequence. So in a way, the rule will be very tight, and it will keep people in line, but in enjoying everything, they're not going to fight that until the enemy is let loose. He'll stir up the rebellion. He'll deceive those that don't want the rule of God. They're only good because it's painful not to be good. And then that will be their final test.